Susan, wow. You're the founder and president of Hope Paper Rwanda, and 10 years into it, we're going to unpack the story. It's a story filled with inspiration.
I want to inspire people because it hasn't been easy every single day. It's a miracle story in the making. I met a gentleman at a cocktail party that was doing work in Rwanda. He invited me to a fundraiser. We really couldn't change the organizations we were helping. I started just praying and getting these dreams of what can I do. Kevin and I talked about it, and we decided we could start a school.
What was it that kind of attracted you to the need?
Kids weren't in school, Jason. During the day, there were a lot of kids working side by side with their parents or kind of playing with made up like little soccer ball things with their trash. And then we did visit schools, and it was mud. There were rocks in the floor. There was one huge blackboard, and it had so much writing on it and so much erasing on it, you couldn't tell what was erased and what was written. And every kid was like on one cheek, next to each other, writing like
On benches.
on benches.
Dirt floor, yeah.
And one kid got like to stand up, and I bet there were 60 or 70 kids in this tiny little dark room. There were no books. Everyone had little pieces of paper and a pencil that was very short. There was just no
They're just
resources.
copying the blackboard, right?
No resources.
Yeah,
just
absolutely.
Bottom line. Education was going to be really important to me in that country. They're trying so hard is what I took away, but so much is needed.
This was starting a pattern for you of visiting. So in 2011, God's given you these ideas about what we could do. You went and you started looking at land and really trying to get this thing off the ground.
Exactly. Well, we went to this area called Marindi. I said, what does this community need? Because I kind of felt the presence of God heavy on me. He goes, well, we need a school. And I'm thinking, perfect, Lord, because that's kind of what I want to do is do a school. I want these kids educated. What I wanted to do was really connect the families and the community to kind of rally around kids in school. This country is in survival mode. So what I wanted to go was from survive to thrive. And so I said to my friend, doesn't matter what, I need to go to this church tomorrow. And he said, oh, that's easy. My sister's a founding member. So I picked up Liz in a driving rainstorm and a taxi, and we went to church together. And I'm like, oh my gosh, she's got to be on our team.
Today, Liz is our managing director, and she's doing a fantastic job. Throughout this process, in these early years, you're trying to find land, you find it, and then the first day of school, what happens?
The end of February, we were able to actually get control of the land. The piece of land that we bought was 6.5 acres, a mud house on it, looked pretty dilapidated. We kind of redeemed these nasty stalls, ended up making them a cooking shed and storage, and then eventually our second year, we actually used one of them to teach the kids in. After they did a little painting, a little cleaning, a little organizing under the tree, and a couple employees, we started a school. So all we had to do is post a sign and say, there's a school. And 97 kids consistently showed up.
Wow.
But they're walking miles to get one jerry can of water, 20 liters.
Right, which they use for drinking, cooking, bathing, everything.
Right, they're living in the dirt and the water's far away.
The culture, the whole neighborhood, you were inspired to lift up all the families, all the students. At this point, you're doing nutrition, you're doing education, you're doing sanitation and hygiene. What happened in 2013 when that 97 became 150 students and you're thinking, we gotta build or something?
Where were these kids gonna go? The 2 classrooms in the mud building were taken. Now we have a tent under the tree because there is a rainy season. Another incredible story of how we found this architecture. Learning space specialists come to Rwanda and develop this gorgeous plan to build the school. I've never submitted like I've submitted on this project. Leaving the Lord in charge has served those kids really well.
We have a third of the buildings completed. There was one day, I'll never forget, I'd barely been on the job and you get a phone call which just blows all of our minds and was such a clear sign from God, it's time to do the other 2/3.
So I got this call and he's like, how much do you need? And I said, 607,000. And he said, done.
At the dedication, when the buildings were complete for the primary campus,
Yeah.
Dr. Isaac came. He was the minister over primary and secondary education. And what did he say at that event? It blew us all away.
He said, I hear you want to be a secondary school too. He goes, I absolutely
It's approved, right on the spot.
want to give you permission.
And then he said, and I want every other school in Rwanda to be like this one.
I got a call from Liz first thing in the morning. 100% of our kids made Division I scores.
On standardized testing. I mean, this isn't internal. This is the nationwide testing.
Yeah.
And our students scored in the top 3%. All of them. Talk about validation.
Just kind of makes me tear up now. Honestly, the whole thing is just super incredible.
Right, and it's not the end of the story, because for the next 2 tests, our students are still testing Division I. And it led us to go into secondary school, which is where it really starts to get exciting.
And you know, Jason, when you write in a speech that you want Christian world leaders, and the kids have chiggers, and the parents are serving, and then you're at this moment and you're like, oh my gosh, this is truly going to happen.
It happened,
by
yeah.
the way.
How many miracles, how many people have been in this process? I mean, we can't even begin to describe that, but what can you say?
You know, meeting a person on the beach, hearing about Africa New Life, meeting Liz, meeting Nate. When I offered Liz the job, I said, I'll take your 2 sisters, sight unseen. She goes, who does that? I mean, right? Priscilla is then like 2 months later, the director of families.
Right,
and
and
we're
she's an
taking care of our
anchor to
families.
this day of the entire operation.
Exactly. Fred came and he went in the classrooms and helped us pick out teachers for interviews, and now he's our leader for the whole school.
The miracle that is Hope Haven
Yes.
is something unlike anything I've ever seen. And one thing I learned from you early on, which was so powerful, and it really changed the way I look at life, was just this purpose that every individual has, because they're so easy in this generational curse of poverty. It's so easy for people to get overlooked. And you're like, no, we're not overlooking any of them. They have a purpose, they have a divine calling, and with God's help, we're gonna help them find it, and we're gonna help them fulfill it.
Of all of these kids, like where they were, and we're gonna have president one day. We're gonna have
Absolutely.
parliamentarians, we're gonna have engineers, we're gonna have all these things.
I believe that you're not gonna have students that are gonna outpace your leaders. So we're investing in those leaders. We got our first chaplain, and we're doing so much, and we're seeing all this like spiritual growth and energy, and I think God is just smiling on it.
What we did is just went to the drawing board and went to the board, right?
Yeah,
And started.
2019, they approved it. Okay, let's do secondary school, we're ready. 2020, March, wow, the whole world shuts down because of
Right.
COVID. And what happened that year?
So that year, built the waste treatment plant, and we purchased 38 pieces of land, and then we built a soccer field. We didn't stop. The one thing we did, though, we took the time to feed the community.
February of 21, you were there again.
Yes.
And then what was going on at that stage?
On June 4th, 2021, when I went up to greet the students to start school, there were over like 200-300 people wanting jobs. I knew we were going to start that day. And so those people were hired, and they started digging the first trench and laying the first stone.
As we finish this part of the story, I just want to give thanks to God for how He's provided investors who have given resources. Some people pray, some people go, and some people give. And we've had some big givers, and
Yes,
that's
we have.
made a significant difference.
We need resources to keep growing. As our population grows from 97 to over 2,200 kids, resources are it. So everyone's important, but our investors are the miracle. God is working through 100% of us, and it's such a beautiful way to see. These kids are going to be powerful Christian leaders, and they're going to break the bondage of poverty over that country and likely the continent of Africa.
Happy 10-year anniversary. No.